Well, hello everyone. Just A320 from Fly-by-Wire, the A320NX. We're sitting on the ground here in Menorca at LE Lima Mike Hotel, LEMH. Yeah, that's where we're at. And the reason I wanted to put this video together is I started doing some online training with a third party's training site, which kind of aims to give virtual A320 pilots a leg up by learning about the aircraft from an experienced pilot who's actually a first officer on an A320. Great program, and part of what they did was simulate base training, which amounts to what a prospective A320 pilot will go through at a specific airport where they will fly circuits and do touch and goes. And I know this, kind of thing happens in the airlines. It's, it's odd. Myself being a private pilot, I fly only the small general aviation aircraft, specifically the Cessna 172 G1000. So I do circuit training and do touch and goes all the time. But to do it in an airliner is quite a different experience, and obviously doing it in an airliner as complex as an A320 is quite interesting because lots of things are happening in a very short, compressed amount of time. But thought, at any rate, I would go through and try it. I did a couple of flights a few days ago. And this is with the modified, as I mentioned, the fly-by-wire version of the A320NX with the fly-by-wire, the custom fly-by-wire control. So there's several different versions you'll find on the website when you go to the GitHub site. One is the standard, kind of the non-modified version, or the main release of it, if you will, that's stable. There's a modified version, and then there's the fly-by-wire. The fly-by-wire has been doing, I'm probably not doing this a lot of justice, but they've been doing some great work modifying the actual fly-by-wire functions of the A320, and to my surprise, flying it, it was quite enjoyable. Flying it in manual mode, I was actually hand flying it and doing circuits hand flying it. It's challenging enough to do in the A320, just generally speaking, but actually the fly-by-wire worked really, really well. Holding my turns at 25 degrees at bank angle, really well on the flare, some of the areas I've had some initial problems with. So I thought I'd go back and try it again because there were a few things that were a little bothersome to me, especially with trying to do the autoflight and having the autoflight manage parts of that. So I'm going to try two things. I'm going to do some circuits here with the automation on and doing more of an ILS approach. It can be a little bit more of a chance to set up the aircraft and get it set up on an ILS and do an ILS approach, and then do manual flight and do some hand flying of the A320NX, doing some hand flying circuits. Different profiles for that. I'll be trying to follow some techniques. I will put the caveat out. I am not an expert in doing this, especially when most of the flying in the A320 is done by setting it up, flying hundreds of miles, and then doing a landing. It's very different when you're trying to do pattern work and things are happening when you're doing a circuit, once every 6 minutes or so. So definitely going to not be an expert in doing this. I'm learning as I go as well, but this is kind of a great practice tool. So without further ado, I know I'm babbling a lot here. Sorry guys. I'll put some time markers in where you can scroll through the video. But I'm cold and dark now, but I'm going to go ahead and get ourselves set up. And while I do so, just get the aircraft configured and ready to go. Just make sure park and brake set, flaps are up, spoilers are up, landing gears down. We're all good here. Wipers are both off. We've got ground power available, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get batteries 1 and 2 on. And just go ahead and get that set here. Not that it really matters. And then we'll go ahead and get our external power going. Get our pumps on. I'm going to leave the center pumps off on the ground just for now. We'll get those on at a later point. We should get everything turned on here. Nav lights are on. Get that all going. Crew supply of oxygen, we need to have that on. I don't have the ability to turn on the ground control for the cockpit voice recorder, but that's okay. Doesn't really need to be simulated. Go get the ADIRs started and going. I'm going to leave the APU off for now. I don't need to get that thing running, getting any fuel imbalances or anything like that going at this point in time. But we'll go ahead and get things at least initially set up while we wait for the FMGC to get initiated. And again, I'll put some time markers in so you guys can fast forward to relevant portions of the flight. We're going to go to the data page and just check everything out. First and foremost, on the status of the database that we have. I need to update mine, so I've got to work on that. I've got the AirAx from Navigraph in here, but I haven't done an update on that yet, so I do need to get that configured, but it's great to see that we have the ability to update that now. So we're just going to go right to the init page, and we're going to do listen to me, from the States here, LEMH to LEMH. just circuit work here. We're going to be we're flying as an Iberia liveried A320 today, appropriately, since we're in the Balearic Islands. So we're going as flight 212T. The T is Tango for training. We'll do a default cost index of 20. If you don't put a cost index in the A320's MCDU, I don't know if this one does, but it defaults to 20. For the circuit training, we're just going to do 3,000 feet, especially for the first rounds. What we're going to do, the first one is going to be an ILS. So we'll do the 30. We'll do the IRS in it now that we've got those going, and I can align on a reference and confirm a line, and we're good to go. So we'll get that time to do its thing. We've got 6 minutes on the alignment here as we talk through that, but this will give folks that are maybe new to getting the pre-flight done on the A320 give a chance to take a look. I don't need to worry about ground temperatures or any of this stuff around. We're just doing circuit work right now, so I'm just going to leave it here on the init page for now. As far as the startup and setup of the aircraft, just to walk through what we did to simulate sort of a base training environment, we've got no passengers, right? It's just pilot, co-pilot, just threw 200 pounds in there, just throw them in there. Business class, I just threw a couple of observers, if you will, that might be on the aircraft, but the rest of it's all empty. And then for fuel, pretty much do full fuel. From the training video I watched, that's, the pilot had mentioned that when they do their base training, they go out full tanks. They're obviously empty, but they go full because they use most of that fuel in their training routine. They go through that process of doing, multiple touch and goes at the airport. So we've gone and simulated that by putting 90% fuel, and you can see what that's done for our center of gravity, 22.67, which is what you would typically see, and that's exactly what we had in the training flight when they were doing it, around 20% or so max. So we'll just trim for that as appropriate, but just remember that. If we need to, we'll come back to it. So we'll continue to get the MCDU initialized. I've got weather set for just clear skies and no traffic here, so it's about as smooth as best conditions as you can get for this. So altimeter showing 2992, which is again what we would get without having really any weather impacting us at all. Like to get the brightness of the PFDs and everything just set up about halfway through on those. And get that configured, and then we'll go ahead and we'll plug in the quote-unquote route. And as we're doing this, I'll explain kind of how we're going to flow this through. As I said, it's sort of a new thing for me. I'm just going to do VFR here. I don't know if it's 1200 in the UK, but we're going to use that for now because that's what it is for me in the States. But for the setup of the MCDU, basically all we need to do is, as you've noticed, is pick our departure. So we've got that in. So we're going to go init, and then we're going to the flight plan page. So we got init, flight plan is the next thing. We're going to pick our departure, and for the training they used runway 19. So I'm going to use 19, and I'm actually going to use the no SID. So we'll do 19, no SID. Okay, well, it doesn't look like I can select none, but that's okay. We'll insert it as none. And then we're going to go to the arrival. So no waypoints, and it's just circuit, right? So we're going to go straight down to the bottom, drop to the arrival. We'll do arrival. There'll be no SID on this either, but we're going to pick the ILS runway 19 ILS Zulu. So we're going to do the ILS 19 Zulu approach. No star. We don't need to select that. It's there. We'll do no transition. And we'll just hit insert on that. And that should have gotten us, I'm hoping that I did. I'm going to try that again because I think I probably shouldn't have hit that one. So we're going to do ILS 19 Yankee Zulu. There it is. So we'll go ahead and insert that. I think it picked it just fine, so we were good. So everything for the FMS, for the MCDU is set as we need it. Now when you're doing the ILS, these airplanes are not, the aircraft are not designed for touch and go. I mean, obviously they can fly them just fine, but the automation, the systems, the MCDU is not really set up for that. So a couple of things you've got to do. Now, if you keep your pattern pretty tight and you fly your approaches inside the final approach fix of the approach, then the MCDU won't reset itself, and it'll just keep on going, and you'll be pretty good. If you do fly out to the final approach fix, once you land, the aircraft is going, okay, done, but then you go and take off and do a go-around. A couple of things are going to get, you might get some squirrely results from the MCDU, so you kind of have to reset it up, and there's a process for that where you basically go through and you select a waypoint and you add the airport as the the new destination. And so that resets the MCDU. You put the new destination in, you pick the approach, and then you're reset to go again. So that's something that we may need to do when we do the ILS. For the visuals, that won't be a problem. You'll be able to do that because you'll keep your patterns pretty tight. The visual patterns flown by the book anyway, from the Airbus A320 book, is 1,500 feet, and you're going to run a circuit where you'll time the turn to base leg. It'll be about 30 to 45 seconds, basically 30 seconds or so, and you'll start your turn to base leg. So you'll be well inside your final approach fix. When I was doing the manual flying with it, the MCDU just carried on, no issues. I didn't have to reset anything. It was perfect. So that's kind of setting the stage for the setup itself. While we're waiting for the last minute or so, we'll go ahead and get the APU started. Before doing that, we click on the APU switch, give it 3 seconds minimum, and then hit start. There's a process and a reason for that because of the computer. There's actually a computer that monitors this whole process for the APU, and it needs 3 seconds to power on. Once you do that, it won't actually initiate a start until the flap open appears here anyway. Now you can see then the APU will start, but you have to give it 3 seconds before. You just can't come on and press on the APU. If you do so, it will probably, the real aircraft will ignore that start command, and you'll be in a condition where the APU, you may get an error, or the APU might start, you get an APU fault. So give it the 3 seconds, press the go button, and watch it fire up. I've noticed here too that the APU in this particular, I don't know if it's a NEO thing, maybe it's a new characteristic of the APU. I don't know if it's a Honeywell unit or what the unit is, but it's a little slow, a little sluggish on the startup. I think it takes a little longer than would typically be the case. But neither here nor there. It does its job, and it starts up and gives us power to the aircraft. So we're good. While we're waiting for that, we'll go ahead and dial in our FCU and get 3,000 foot on our altitude. Constraints are set here. We're going to keep our range in. Another trick we like to use doing circuits is leverage the rose mode on the VOR. Go to nav mode, and it gives you a better picture when you're kind of flying the circuit, to be able to keep an eye on the airport, specifically if it's a little hazy or not quite as easy to see the field. That will help you orient yourself massively, and then of course put it back on arc mode when you start your approach. But that's a primary way of getting yourself set up for that. So looks like our APU is about to come online. We've got our GPS, our FMC, MCDU rather, programmed and set to go. We're just about pretty much ready for engine start, so I'm going to go back up to the overhead panel again. Again, I'm just going through a memory abbreviated checklist here, so please don't hold me to any standards here as far as going through the process. But ADIRs are set. We've got everything off here. Our oxygen's on, lights are on. We're going to go ahead and our beacon on at this point in time. We will go ahead and get our center pumps on. Alright, we got our lights on. We're going to arm the emergency lights, get both pumps on here. External power selected on already. We can go ahead and click that off now that we've got our ground power, our APU running. Get our APU bleeds on. That's great. And now we're ready to basically get ourselves ready for engine start. So we'll make sure we got our cabin doors locked and closed. Got our beacon lights on. Again, panel looks good above. Set for 3,000. Got our fuel set. I think all our pages are good to go here. So we'll go ahead and get engine start going. Start page on. So PSI is good. We're going to start up the left engine. I start the left engine because the left engine powers the green hydraulic system, and the green hydraulic system is critical for things like brakes on the aircraft. So we would have gone and checked to make sure our triple fed meter is showing a brake status, and pressure's good. But we have that here, so we would want to check that first, obviously, before we start off, and make sure that our parking brakes and such are going to work for us. So we've got N2 rising. EGT is already fired off. Looks like we're getting a good start on the number 1. Low pressure's coming up. Ignition A has fired off for today. The igniters in the A320 alternate, so you have an A or a B that would appear down here. And that's not done by any day. It's sort of a totally random thing that the FADEC selects on which igniters it uses. We get the Avail light. Thanks for adding that, FSO Flight Sim guys. I mean, this is great. This is one of the details that was missing in the default plane. to know that your engine is a completed successful start. We'll go ahead and start engine number 2. Another thing I appreciate that the Flight Sim fly-by-wire folks have done is added, we see the hydraulic PTU, but we don't hear it from the cabin. Thank you for that. It's unrealistic to hear the PTU barking away from the cabin. So it's great to see that that's on. We get our additional messages here, ECAM memos showing that the predictive wind shear is off. Turn that on now. Their weather radar is an interesting tool in that there's really nothing that tells you whether it is actively gauged here in a sense where you can turn it on or off for sure, but it actually does turn on when you turn on the PWS. So one of the things that's practiced at the gate is to keep that off until you're sure that personnel and equipment are clear, so you're not kind of microwaving folks that are standing around you. So we like to keep that off. Just per SOP, generally even though it's a totally clear day here today, we typically have their weather radar on. So we have engine 2s available now. We're going to go ahead and go back to the start page. We'll run through our after start flows. So we've got our ignition back to normal. Speed brake arms. Flap will go to flap 1. We're going to immediately come up here and turn off the APU bleeds. Very important to get the APU bleed off very quickly because the APU bleed, as you know, has an intake, and that intake can suck in exhaust fumes, which then get mixed into the airflow and delivered to the cabin. So there's actually an interesting article from Airbus about that that concern with the smells of either exhaust or oil getting into the cabin from the APU. So common practice is once you're done with the engine start, get your flows done, get that APU bleed turned off. All right, so we've done the after start checks. We have our spoilers armed, flaps 1. We're going to get our transponder to auto now, and we'll keep that set for ident where it is. We're going to be departing on runway 19 today. So the other thing we'll do is get our taxi light coming on, and first we'll do a control check. Full up, full forward, full left, neutral, full right, neutral, and we'll check motors. Another thing I have had an issue with, and it's probably just my control setting, I need to look into that, is when I do a full stop landing, I get an issue with not being able to control the steering anymore. I think there's something on with my controls. I'm going to look into that. Center of gravity was 22.68. Remember, we'll take a look down here at 22.6, so 21. This is, again, fairly rough eyeball type stuff here, so it's going to be about 1 up. So to do that, we can just, I need to get a better view here. We can just basically roll our trim and put this triangle to about 1 up. And that gets us set. Now, a couple things I missed because I got in a hurry, and I remembered it now. I'm coming back to it. So we got to our flight plan. We have to go back to init again, go to page B. We can just key that in, and that's all good to go. Fuel on board, we missed that here. So again, shame on me for rushing, but we didn't get our V speeds put in. I can put the reminder in here, so we'll just do a 1/UP 1.0 for the flap trimmable horizontal stabilizer. We're good to go there, and at this point we'll go back, go to the prog page. Again, we're flight level 3. We should be set here to go now. Confirm we've got our fuel, 17,000 kilos of fuel on board. Flaps are set. Go ahead and max on the auto brake now. Check the cabin. That should be good to go, but don't need to do anything there. Okay, cabin comes through clear. Okay, we're going to go ahead and release brakes. We'll check for traffic left and right. We're kind of in a tight little pickle here, so I'm just going to power myself out of here to the right. We'll just do a little left engine only. Sorry, line guys. Hopefully I'm not dusting you with the exhaust here, but kind of keep it coming around here. And we'll go ahead and take the next taxiway off here to the left, and then we'll head down towards the runway 19 for the departure. We're clear, right? Another thing I found is a great improvement with the A320, the fly-by-wire modification, is the ground roll is pretty accurate. It feels really good now, actually a lot better than what it was before in the default, where it took gobs of power to get it going. Here you saw I only just used left throttle, or left Yep, what do we got? Just used the thrust from the left engine to get us moving around that corner, and that seemed to work really well. I try to keep it 10 knots or less for the turns, especially the 90-degreers. It seems god-awful slow, but that's really where you want to be to avoid scrubbing the nose wheel tires and sliding the airplane. And we'll check left, traffic's good. We'll head off to the right here. I've also got to find another way to, I wish, the one thing I don't have on my, I've got the TCS Airbus throttles. The one thing I don't have is a nice rotary to be able to act as a tiller on the throttle. That's what I had on my old SATEC. And I've got a brake set up where it's a nice progressive brake on my the joystick itself, on the side stick. I use the slider on the bottom as a brake control. So I'm able to, you know, when I'm just using my left hand to work as the tiller, I'm able to get nice, slow, as you can watch here on the airspeed, nice progressive slow braking here. Very gradual using that slider, which is great. But I can't turn and brake at the same time because it's the left hand, so that's been a little bit tough trying to get accustomed to that, but it's a minor little annoyance. Alright, so we're going to do our takeoff config check. Config check comes back normal. We are in flaps. And there's the cabin crew, even though we don't have one. Guess we have a purser on board today. So we're in config 1. Packs are on. Auto brakes max. And we'll just assume ATC's cleared us for the departure. So just to keep things moving, keep things going here. We'll get the strobes on. I'll put them in on instead of auto, just to not turn it on and off when we land. Since we're doing circuits, might as well just keep them going the whole time here. So we'll get that going. We'll get our wing light on for now. Runway turn off lights. And we'll take this second taxiway here. So line us up onto the final. Look at the departure area. Approach area looks clear. So I'm going to actually go ahead and get lined up here, and then I'll just very quickly talk through where we're at. These things are going to happen pretty quick. As I said, we're just going up to 3,000 feet. I'm going to try to use the automation as much as I can for this particular circuit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get ourselves stopped on the runway. Brakes are set. Again, we'll just do a quick flow. We got speed brakes, flaps where we need it to be, ignition's off. Takeoff memos, near clear, no memos. We'll just do a quick a recall here. Status is normal. Recall, we're all good. So we're clear and set to go. Go ahead and get our landing lights and everything turned on right now, just to get set for that. And so we'll do a departure. We're going to plan to go straight out off the runway here, and I'm actually going to pull now on the ground, right? So we can get into heading mode rather than having to go in nav mode and trying to do a hard left to follow this course route. We're going to do a left-hand circuit in the runway 19. We're going to take off with toga power. We're going to climb to 3,000 feet, and somewhere during the departure climb out, we'll start our turn onto our crosswind leg, then to a downwind leg, and then we'll start configuring the airplane up for the approach, which we're going to do as an ILS this time. So I'm going to get the flight directors on, which again should have been on earlier. We'll get the localizers turned on, localizer selectors turned on, so that we can get the approach course. And we see that that's been auto-tuned, MAO, that is the identifier and localizer for runway 19 here. So we've got that all set and ready to go and lined up to go. We'll go ahead and get ourselves moving. So we're going to, I think the clock works. No, it doesn't, but we can get the chrono going. We'll get half stick down on the side stick. Stand up the throttles to 50%. Release our brakes, and off we go. set. Mantoga, SRS runway. Knots. V1 rotate. Positive climb 0. 12 and a half, 15. We're above 400 feet. We'll get the automation on now. Autopilot 1's engaged. Looking for the S speed, and we'll reduce to flaps 0, config 0. There's your 250, flat thrust. Speed checked, heading mode. Passing S speed, flaps up, config 0. There's green dot, and we're coming into 3,000 feet. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves turned. Now I do have the 10-degree heading bug going right now too. Again, it's a control set issue. It's nothing to do with the fly-by-wire sim. It's all control, so I need to fix that. We'll go ahead and disarm our spoilers, and for touch and goes, you do not want to have your spoilers armed. You do not want to have auto brakes armed. In fact, you don't want to use brakes at all. So I want to make sure that that's not enabled when you're doing the touch and go of the circuits. So we want to do about 90 degrees, turn to the left here. Again, we got a nice, look at that, 25-ish degree bank. The autoflight does a great job. But notice what happened. I completely missed. This is what happened to me yesterday. 3,000 feet just blew right on by. And so now what I would do here is try to, okay, let's keep the automation on, but let's go ahead and get back to 3,000 feet. So I'm going to pull, try to get a manual descent here. Right, and we're going to descend, and I'm actually going to reduce my speed here as well. So we're going to pull from manual thrust, and we're going to do 180. And let's go ahead and get ourselves started on our downwind leg here. But so again, if you notice what happened, so it's sitting here at 4,900 feet right now. And what I tried to do was, come on. What I tried to do was actually get, and we're going to actually pull that up to green dot here. Just fly right at green dot speed. Alright. Try to do was get it to descend to 3,000. So I've got 3,000 set, and what I want to do is a vertical speed. So I want to pull to get VS, and I want to be able to descend 1,000 foot a minute. So that's it. That should be going right now. It should be descending, but it's not. Because if I pull it, it's going to level off. Right? I can't push it. So this is selected. So that's going to keep me there. If I pull it, which is what I'm trying to do right now, and go to 1,000. See if that works. Yeah, that doesn't work either. So let's try to do an open descent. So let's pull, and let's see if it'll open descent down to 3,000. And it does. This appears to. Okay, well, while it's doing its descent now, we've got to get ourselves briefed for the approach, right? So we're going to go heads down for a moment, because you see it says enter destination data. So we're going to go to performance page, next, 29.92. Temperature, I actually don't remember, but we're going to use 12 degrees. It looks like it's probably about 12. I think for this we're good, right? Wind is calm. And 200 on the decision height, which is okay. Right, okay, so the approach has been briefed. Now I'm going to keep that, I'm going to go to the performance page here. I'm going to keep that up because I'm going to have to activate that on the way in. So right now I'm just flying at green dot speed, so that's the best lift over drag speed, right? So 200 knots, and anything below that, we got flaps 1 in here shortly. So we're on the downwind leg. We'll go ahead and call up flaps 1 now. as we're continuing our shallow descent down to 3,000. So we'll be a little high. That's okay. We'll extend it out a little bit so we can capture the glide slope and the localizer. But now that we've got flaps 1 in, we've got a little bit more drag. So we're getting a better descent now down to 3,000. So you can see I've changed into nav mode on the arc, mark to nav. We can see where our final approach fix is. So we're going to get ourselves a beam that, and then about 30 seconds or so we'll turn in towards it with try to get an intercept angle to pick up the ILS. So there was our first little gotcha, was the blown altitude at a departure. I was on autopilot, I had 3,000 set, and I actually didn't even see what happened. So maybe you guys did as you're watching the video, but it just kind of seemed like it blew right past our 3,000 foot altitude, put us up at a little over 4,000. So that was the first thing that I experienced on the last flight, which had trouble getting back to altitude, which is why I prompted to do a manual landing instead. So here we are, 3,000. If you're coming up, looks like what nose is going to come over on us, which is great. Okay, we're maintaining 200. We'll go ahead and activate the approach now. Now that's not going to do anything except get the aircraft ready. And it also will take our speed. So when we press on to get managed speed, we'll go to our approach mode. But I'm in manual or selected speed mode at this point in time, which is fine. So selected speed, altitude capture, and heading is active right now on the PFD. So it seems to be right about the shoreline area here. We can start our turn in. So I'm going to dial in about 250 right now on the heading. Get us pointed over in that direction. We've got our flight directors on. We got the localizer up, as we can see. MAO is receiving. We're just off the scale here, so that's where we're seeing the magenta triangles or brackets off the scale. Again, no auto brake, no spoiler arming for the touch and go. You're going to go to flap 3, you're going to go to flaps full. You're going to land, get yourself established on center line. You're going to reduce flaps to flaps 2, stand up the throttles to about 50%, and then spool up. You're going to go toga, thrust, and take off. Everything's going to happen really quickly. So with flaps 2, you're going to pass the F speed. That's what you're going to be looking for. Flaps 2, you're going to go to flaps 1, and you're going to leave it at flaps 1. You're going to fly flaps 1 for the approach. And you can just keep your speed at basically green dot or below for that. Effectively is what you'll end up doing. You could go clean, but again, you don't want to be accelerating at 250 knots, so we'll keep it at flaps 1. So it's looking like a halfway decent intercept. So we're going to go ahead and just adjust it a little bit more. And we'll go ahead and arm localizer. And I'm going to go ahead and go flaps 2. Push and take on our, say we're at flaps 2. Glide slope's coming in, we're going to go gear down. With gear down, we can go flaps 3. And I'm doing this early, but I want to get a nice stable approach going. So there's our speed descending down. And arm the approach. So we've got speed, altitude, glide slope blue, heading, localizer blue. We're starting to pick up the loc now. Localizer captured. Speed out, localizer captured. And you notice the airplane has picked up the speed target at F speed, which is perfect. So right at F speed. Glide slope is now captured, so we're speed, glide slope, localizer captured. And we'll go flaps full. Go around, missed approach, or altitude is set for 3,000. 3,500 call. So I think the aircraft is scooching itself over here. It looks like the localizer is coming on here. We still look a little left, but for some reason the wind is coming out of the west, pushing us. Should be pushing us very slightly. If anything, it's only 2-knot wind, but yeah, we do seem to be a little off center here, but it'll fix it. Cabin check. We're going to ignore the spoilers armed. There we go. So we're 5.5 miles out, and looks like we're on approach now. Localizer's not been fully captured. Take this down to about 1,000, and we'll disengage the autopilot and do a manual landing. Coming up on 1,500 feet. Done a really nice job. Approach is looking nice and stable here on the ILS. 200 to go to 1,000 with this gauge autopilot. Okay, coming up on 1,000 feet. Autopilot's disengaged. I like to disengage the autopilot, just don't touch anything. It was already locked in, so just leave it alone and then see what the aircraft does and then adjust from there. I haven't touched the stick at all. My hand's not even actually on the stick right now. Side stick is neutral. Just let the airplane fly. And it's doing this, obviously, there's no wind, very little wind to worry about, so I'm just now looking and transitioning to that sight picture outside the window, which is the touchdown zone marker, and I will adjust accordingly. But such minute movements here. That's all that's required to keep this airplane coming in. At some point in time, you're going to look at the VASI on the right. You see we've got on slope. Well, you want to hit in that first third, you're going to need to get some red showing, and that's okay. You're visual. You're just looking at that marker in the center of the screen and making sure that it's not moving. If it stays where in the center of your windscreen, you're going to hit it. Minimum should be about 50 feet over the threshold, maybe a little higher, a little lower for me. At 30, I'm going to reduce the throttle.
50, 40, 30,
There's 30.
20,
Retard, flare.
drive.
And there's a nice smooth touchdown, folks. Get that nose wheel down. Flaps 2. Stand up the throttles. Toga. And here we go. Positive climb gear up. Flaps 1. There's our S-speed. We'll maintain that. Take on up to 3,000. Try this again. Autopilot's engaged. Whoa! What happened there? I pitched up because of the... So I'm in climb mode. I'm not sure what happened here. So autopilot's coming off. We're going to pitch down. So it didn't like whatever just happened there with the autopilot, but now I'm trying to get that nose back down. So yeah, a couple of things, you know, still being kinked in, worked out with the autoflight here, but yeah, we've blown through the 3,000 feet again. So we'll get ourselves back down. Autopilot's off now, so I'm just hand flying at this point. So I'm actually going to pick up another episode here where we do just some hand flying, but I wanted to give you a feel for what this looks like in order to try to do autoflight assisted touch and go. We just did one. We'll try some more in the future. And I think I said the next time I'll do a short video on doing this manually, hand fly. So So I appreciate you guys riding along with us. Hope this helped some of you, maybe give you some encouragement to go out and try some touch goes in the wonderful